Chapter 12, Population Growth and Aging. The world population reached 1 billion in 1800 after thousands of years, and it only took 300 years to get from 1 billion to 6 billion. For 99% of human history, population growth was limited by disease and food supplies. The development of agriculture and the domestication of animals around 8000 BC led to increased food supplies and population growth. And in the mid-18th century, when the Industrial Revolution improved the standard of living for much of the world's population, rapid increases in population occurred. The world's population is projected to grow from 6.9 billion in 2010 to 8 billion in 2025, and then to 9.3 billion in 2050 and 10 billion in 2085. Although China is the most populated country in the world today, India will become the most populated by 2050. Nearly all of the world population growth is in developing countries, mostly Africa and Asia. As the size of a country's population grows, so does its population density, which is the number of people per unit of land area. Higher proportion or higher population growth in developing countries is largely due to higher fertility rates, which is the average number of births per woman in a population. The least developed regions of the world have the highest rates of fertility. To reach population stabilization, fertility rates throughout the world would need to achieve replacement level births, which would replace but not outnumber deaths. The way that we receive zero population growth is when parents have only 2 children, which is just enough to replace yourself. Now keep in mind, it's got to maintain that for a period of 25 years before populations will result in a stable size. Even if every country in the world achieved zero population growth or replacement level fertility rates, populations would continue to grow for several decades because of population momentum. And of course, we're talking about continued population growth as a result of past high fertility rates that have resulted in a large number of young women who are currently entering their childbearing years. Another demographic that we want to look at that presents its own set of challenges is the increasing number and proportion of older individuals in the population. Between 2010 and 2050, the percentage of older individuals ages 65 and over in the world population is expected to double and will nearly double in the United States. At the present time, Japan has the fastest growing proportion of elderly in any country. I heard on the news a year or so ago that there were over 100,000 women in Japan that were over the age of 100. The aging of the world's population is due to both declining levels of fertility and to increased longevity. Also, an unusually large generation of Americans known as the baby boomers are becoming of age, population aging is going to increase pressure on a society's ability to support its elderly members. A commonly used indicator of this pressure is the elderly support ratio. This is calculated as the number of working age people divided by the number of people 65 or older. The structural functionalists perspective has what is known as the demographic transition theory of population that describes how industrialization has affected population growth. As a society becomes industrialized and urbanized, improved sanitation, health, and education lead to a decline in morality. We have increased survival rates of infants and children, along with declining economic value of children, which leads to a decline in fertility rates. The conflict perspective focuses on wealth and power, or the lack thereof, which affects population problems. And symbolic interactions perspective focuses on how meanings, labels, and definitions learned through interaction affect population problems. For example, class, pronatalism. Okay, this is a cultural value that promotes having children. Many religions are promoting childbearing through worshiping fertility historically and prohibiting or discouraging birth control, contraceptives, and abortion. As some women learn new definitions of fertility control, they become role models and influence attitudes and behaviors of others in their personal networks. I want to say that countries with the largest populations do not necessarily have the largest impact on the environment, and this is because the demands that humanity makes on the Earth's natural resources, each person's environmental footprint is determined by the patterns of production and consumption in that person's culture. Poverty and unemployment are problems that plague countries with high population growth. In the less developed countries with high birth rates, they don't have enough jobs for a rapidly growing population, and land for subsistence farming becomes increasingly scarce as populations grow. Poverty leads to high fertility because poor women are less likely to have access to contraceptions and are more likely to have large families in the hope that some of the children will survive to adulthood and support them in their old age. And high fertility also exacerbates poverty because families have more children to support and national budgets for education and health care are stretched thin. Maternal deaths are the leading cause of mortality for reproductive age women in the developing world. Having several children at short intervals increases the chances of premature birth, infectious disease, and death for the mother or the baby. Childbearing at young ages also increases the risk of health problems. The more children a woman has, the fewer parental resources such as income, time, maternal nutrition, and social resources such as health care, education are available to each child. And I also want to say in developing countries, 1 in 4 children are born unwanted, which increases the risk of neglect and abuse. Ageism refers to negative stereotyping, prejudice, and discrimination based on a person or a group's chronological age. There are so many indicators of ageism in our society. Certainly we have a negative view of wrinkles and gray hair and other physical signs of aging. Millions of Americans purchase products or treatments to make them look younger, spending substantial sums of money and undergoing unnecessary and often risky medical procedures to look younger. Discrimination against people in the workforce, age discrimination. Most Americans think they will continue working full-time or part-time after they reach retirement age. either because they want to or because they have to. It was found that younger job seekers were 40% more likely to be offered a job interview than older job seekers with similar resumes. And older workers may be more vulnerable to being let go because although they have seniority on the job, they may also have higher salaries. As far as family caregiving for our elders, adults who care for their aging parents while also taking care of their own children are referred to as members of the sandwich generation. Caring for the elderly has traditionally been the role of the family. Modern societies certainly entice families to care for aging relatives. Looking at retirement concerns of the older Americans and the role of Social Security, a majority of United States adults do not think that they will have enough money to live comfortably in retirement. More than half of households are at risk of a significant drop in lifestyle upon retirement. There are many different types of retirement plans. One is a traditional pension, which retirees receive a specified annual amount until their death. We have a defined contribution where workers contribute money to retirement accounts without any guarantee of what the future benefits will be. And of course, there are others. As far as the role of Social Security in retirement, it was established in 1935 to protect against loss of income for retirement, disability, or death. More than 2/3 of benefits are for retirement. The amount a person receives is based on how much that person earned and age of retirement. At the present time, the age for full retirement benefits is 67. And of course, if you retire at 70, you'll get a larger benefit. Social Security was never intended to be the sole source of income in retirement, but it has become just that for many people. And I want to say, without Social Security, more than half of Americans over 65 would be in poverty. Social Security is funded by workers through a payroll tax that comprises 12.4% of wages up to $106,800. Funds are held in a trust. And the question is Social Security in crisis? Some potential problems are obligations to future retirees, including the retirement of the baby boomers, increasing longevity, the declining elderly support ratio. In other words, there's fewer workers per beneficiary. We've got widening wage inequality, which means that more income is not subject to Social Security taxes, high rates of unemployment, and wage stagnation.